Bonzo. Bonzo Bonzo.
First of all, I kind of want to talk about Magnus for Gaza, which was an event organized by the Magnus Archives community where you can donate to families in Gaza and in turn you'll get a commission. The event is going to end at the end of June, and I don't know if this video will come out before that. Even if the event is gone, I would still urge you to donate, even if you don't get anything in return. That'd be just a great help to people in Gaza. Welcome back. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos, hi, I'm Pinky. I do little Magnus Protocol recaps and just talking about little theories. And if you are returning from the last video, as you can see, the conspiracy board has changed a little. I stopped using post-it notes because the post-it notes kept curling up. And it was kind of a mess. So we have it more clean now. It's more clean now. We're halfway through season 1. I'm recording this section when episode 15 has released. Technically speaking, it hasn't released to the public yet. So first of all, I kind of want to talk about the glitch theory. The glitch theory is kind of this thing people picked up on. People way smarter than me. I don't know who started it, because I kind of just started seeing people talk about it. But it's the idea that whatever is recording, the OIR, Freddy, has some kind of lie detector, and every time someone lies, there's like a little glitch.
Listen, if you need to step out for some air...
No, I'm fine, really.
Which is something to be, like, kind of paying attention to, because, well, being able to see when characters are lying is pretty darn useful. So, we'll start off with episode 11. Celia wakes up on the side of the road. Girl, what are you doing? So, basically, there's kind of two interpretations that I've seen from this. It's either she's sleepwalking, which is what I assumed, or she is straight up teleporting, which also makes sense with the whole interdimensional, her traveling through dimensions. Maybe her body is just kind of glitching and just ending up in different places. But she also mentions a jack. Look, I listen to these episodes with other people. And by God, the moment we ended that episode, we just immediately went into Hycopian talking about this is how Agnes Montague can still win, guys. This is how she can still win. The only prominent Jack in the Magnus Archives is Jack Barnabas, who is, Agnes's boyfriend. And it's like Celia already has like kind of that connection to Agnes through episode 100 from the Magnus Archives. So it's like, oh my god, Jack? Is that Jack Barnabas? Look, I will stay grasping at straws. Another thing that I think is interesting is how Celia doesn't have service, but yet Freddy is still capable of recording her. Which means that, yeah, he is straight up in her phone. Or it. What pronouns does Freddy use? Also, in the conversation between Lena and Gwen, it very much, like, confirms that Bonzo is an external, which implies that he has a job, which means he also is technically a legal citizen. And with how Nigel Dickerson referred to his house as Bonzo's house, like his house, that also implies that Bonzo's a house owner, and I think... Do you think Bonzo pays taxes? I remember reading the description of the episode, and I was like, Inksel's back. They appear in the case, and the case is about, like, people having to clean up, like, a graveyard close to the sea, and they find a tattoo of, like, an ocean. And the guy kind of gets obsessed with the tattoo and maybe kills his co-worker. The person here, Gordon J. I think he might be important. Episode 12, a very cute detail is that Celia drinks tea. So in episode 11, like I said, coffee is a love language, but like Alice gets coffee for both Celia and Sam, but Celia doesn't end up drinking the coffee, and in this episode she's drinking tea. Because in the Magnus archives they always drunk tea, and it's supposed to show that she's from a different universe. Sam also talks about wanting to stop investigating the Magnus Institute, and then when Alice pushes him on it, he goes, yeah, I know, I'm over it now, and then there's like a little glitch.
You wouldn't be tempted? Nope. Cool.
Because obviously he's not. This is called the Magnus Protocol. I don't think you're escaping this one, Sam. Also, Alice is Jesus. Confirmed. Canon. Real. Case everyone's been talking about. The episode is called Getting Off. I was hoping for Scrum 2, Electric Boogaloo. Unlike a horror aspect, I think I like Squirm more. I like Room 6 more. That's a sentence. That's for sure a sentence that I just said. But I think Bonzo going to a strip club is pretty fucking funny as well. The case itself also takes place on the same day as episode 10, which does mean that that's where Bonzo went immediately after getting the letter from Gwen. My question is, why did the British government want this guy dead? What did this guy do? Episode 13, we get a Samelia date. Also, I have chosen we don't really have a Samcelia ship name yet. So I'm just calling it Samelia because I refuse to call it Samcelia. I am not going down the same path as John Martin. We've been so good in the Magnus Protocol fandom for coming up with really good ship names, unlike the Magnus Archives fandom previously. So I refuse to call Samcelia. It's Samelia, okay? It's not as banger as stuff like Bukeli and Die Hard. This is also where we get the reveal of who Jack is. Jack is, drumroll please, Celia's son. Celia's actual baby child. Now you'll probably be saying, Pinky, this proves that it cannot be Jack Barnabas. Your whole shtick of this is how Agnes Montague can still win has been ruined. Wrong. Agnes is the father. Look, I'm telling you, Agnes is the dad. And she named Jack after her ex-boyfriend. I'm telling you. Good dream. We get the first mention of possible entities. Lena refers to kind of benevolent and like evil forces that they have to control and that they are managing the bad guys. Some people be like, oh, but there's benevolent forces. There shouldn't be benevolent forces by the rules of the Magnus Archives. And I don't know if, the thing is, in this case, Lena is a unreliable narrator. We don't know what she views as benevolent forces. We just know that she believes she's doing right by killing people. The case is about a crypto bro who's gambling on one of those, gambling apps, which, honestly, it was about time we got a a Magnus episode about crypto bros. But at the end of the episode, the guy is calling, right? You hear a sort of insectoid. The content warnings refers to it as an insectoid, and he gets attacked by this little creature that I think comes from his phone. So he's being attacked by this bug. And I don't know why, but I feel like the bug's gonna come back in some way. So episode 14 is very much the calm before the storm. So most of what we get is just little character interactions. What I do think is interesting is the fact that Alice has been very much jealous of Sam and Celia because she is obviously Sam's ex, and she doesn't really cope with her emotions correctly. Now she's also kind of jokingly flirting with Celia. And I don't care for relationship drama that much. I think it's just a very tad bit annoying, just a little bit. Like, I need all of them to be friends, or I need all of them to kiss. I unironically hope this ends in a polycule. I really hope that Sam, Celia, and Alice get to just date all of them. In the case, we have the snake version of Jane Prentice, who has like a little animal insect shop and like a lot of snakes. There's a lot of snakes. But in the case, it mentions that there's like rejection letters from an institute, and Sam himself kind of comments on it, being like, no, this can't be right. Like, this can't be. It's gotta be a different institute, right? Right? Well, the case itself is written in 1998, if I remember correctly, which means that the Magnus Institute was still standing. It is very much possible that the rejection letters are from the Magnus Institute. And what that means is kind of concerning. In episode 9, we obviously have the Dice Guy episode. It's a Magnus statement. And in the statement, it obviously starts with like viability as subject, viability as like catalyst. And I think that that's what this is referring to. People are applying to the Magnus Institute as some kind of like either an agent, a catalyst, or something like that. And that means that the Magnus Institute was actively trying to search for people or things to do a ritual with, and Snake Guy was just rejected for some reason. That's obviously also concerning with the Magnus Institute's kind of gifted children program, because like what were they doing, right? Like, what did they need these kids for? What was Sam rejected for? This is very much not my thought. But like, if you look at the Magnus Institute's filing, there is, like, you can see like what scores each kid got. Sam had like the highest empathy score. And the idea might be that Sam was rejected because he had a very high empathy score, and maybe they were looking for kids with low empathy scores. Episode 15 is like chock full of stuff. Sam invites Celia to the Pillow Man? The Pillow Man, which is a play, and I had to look it up. Sam apparently doesn't know what the play is about, but it sure was a choice for a date. And God, I loved this case. This case is so up my alley. I loved it. The case itself is the introduction to Lady Maury. Lady Maury, or Lady M, has been in the ARG. And goddamn, I love myself a hunter character. And all I will say, in the ARG, when we meet up with Lady M's, like, assistant, I'm pretty sure she says, like, my lady, but people misheard it as mommy.
Mom, am I able to give this person the clues?
And I'll tell you, we were not wrong for calling her mommy. Lady Maury shows up while her case is playing, and that also points like a very interesting thing out. In episode 10, when obviously Gwen is going to Mr. Bonzo, there's also a Bonzo case playing, and it kind of feels like the cases somehow always relate to the things that are happening. Oh, you mentioned the Magnus Institute? Here is a Magnus statement. Celia shows up, here, have a Hilltop case. It feels like they are always kind of relating back to the person that is listening or whatever is being talked about. Same for like the first episode. Sam shows up, instantly Magnus Institute case. The transcript's description of Lady Maury's dogs and specifying that they are not fur babies was definitely a choice. What did Gwen invite Lady Maury for? My thought is she's trying to find dirt on Lena and is searching through all of the like OAR context to try and find anything. Also, apparently she's a Cheshire Bouchard, which apparently is like a location in the UK. I didn't know that. Which, that's interesting. So now we get to, like, the part of the episode that fucking scared the shit out of me. I am, like, genuinely terrified. What happened? Alice goes to her brother's concert. On her way home in Yali, she finds a person that is in this transcript referred to as drowning victim, who is, like, chanting this weird little rhyme, and, like, Alice tries to help, tries to call, but, like, gets freaked out, and, like, the person dies, but then, like, comes back, and it's, like, a whole thing. Really interesting, because they are being recorded by a tape recorder instead of Freddy. And I think that this might fully confirm that Freddy and the tape recorders are not the same thing, because Freddy could have just easily recorded Alice via her phone, right? She has her phone with her. It's functioning. And also, Freddy doesn't need service to be recording, but it's still being recorded via a tape recorder. So that's interesting. And I've seen, like, people... So, again, this episode isn't out yet. So I don't know what, like, the popular consensus is. But I've talked to people who... A lot of people assume that the drowning victim is related to Error from the Magnus Institute of episode 10. Weirdly enough, I don't think so. I am still of the belief that Error is redacted. Not only do the voice actors not match up, it also feels weird that it's a drowning victim when it's a character from the Magnus Institute. Like, Error, like, it makes sense, right? It's a tape recorder, and Error could have been following Alice since the Magnus Institute. Which is probably, like, assumed so because Alice was talking about how someone was following her. Like, I don't see why the person would be a drowning victim. What is the relation between Error and water? I think it might be more related to Gordon J from, like, the graveyard episode. So I'm very concerned about Colin. The last time we saw Colin, it was in episode 10 when he snuck into the OAR and, like, went, "Don't tell Lena about this," and then, like, started doing sneaky shit on the computers. Like, what is he up to? We've not seen him at all. He's just gone? Alright. Oh. Okay. As you can tell by the setup, this is very scuffed. Because I had, like, a late night thought. It's almost midnight. Because I was drawing, like, the last scene in episode 15 with, like, the drowning victim. And again, a lot of people are like, oh, it might be a victim of Error, and I don't know, because obviously the tape recorders, like, the tape recorder connection is there. And then I thought about it. So we were talking about how Celia is, like, categorized to be different. People can kind of not only notice that something's different about her, but it's also, she is actively an oddity in this world. And I think that the fact that it's being recorded by a tape recorder is supposed to show that it's an oddity in this world. Whereas, like, most of the Magnus Protocol is done through technology that is, like, our norm. That's how this universe operates. And by showing that it's a tape recorder, it's supposed to show that it's from the Magnus Archives universe. And that's my theory. My theory is that we're gonna see more moments of people, of victims, shit happening to victims, and it being recorded on a tape recorder, and they are going to be people from the Magnus Archives universe. So basically, I think that, like, the drowning victim is someone who was stuck in, like, a buried domain and transported over to this world and is now a little fucked up because, you know. Which maybe that's also what Error is. Maybe Error is also from, which, again, we already theorized that Error might be from the Magnus Archives universe, with the fact that Error is credited in the same way Norris, Chester, and Augustus were all credited as error in the first cast reveal, so they have like a commonality with error. So I think that they are all from the Magnus Archives universe somehow. That's my theory. I've not run this past anyone. I've not gone to anyone talking about this. So maybe... So nobody's fact-checked me on it. No one has like looked at me and been like, Pinky, this is a terrible idea. This is a horrible theory. What are you talking? I genuinely think I'm onto something with this one. And I usually don't think that. Usually I'm like kind of just throwing shit at a wall. This one, I trust myself with this one. This one is this one. I think we'll have more moments like this. It's so fucking hot in this room right now. Like, it is insanely hot. So, first of all, before we get into the episodes, some theories that I've seen, or the things that I've seen people point out, is Luke Dyer, who we know obviously to be Alice's brother. He has a band. He has actually multiple bands. But a notable thing is that his band is called the Dredgemen, and a lot of people have pointed out how that could maybe be connected to, like, the drowning victim, because obviously that happened right after Luke's concert. That, or he's just, like, a really big fan of the Silt Verses. Episode 16! Woo! Props to the Protocol cast, because they actually believe and support each other when bad stuff happens. This is such a cute little scene with all of these characters supporting Alice after she went through something pretty traumatic. Alice mentions that she's not seen someone die since, and then she cuts off, implying that she has seen someone die before. Some people I've seen mention that maybe it could be her parents, because her parents are dead. Maybe it's Connor Dyer, because we still don't know how Connor Dyer fits into all of this. Lena is also, like, kind of upset with Gwen, which this is gonna be something we'll see a lot, where Gwen will complain about things, and then Lena will be like, Gwen, you wanted this job. And then Gwen's like, well, yes, but also it sucks. And then for the statement, we have something that for sure is a statement. Let's say YouTuber who gets tattooed by Inksel, and bad stuff happens because of it. Because you shouldn't get a tattoo from Inksel. So I love a lot of the cases, but this one and like a few others do somewhat illustrate my problem with some of the cases where I really like medium-based media. Right, where this is why I like podcasts, because you have to like play around with a very creative format and try and make something out of that with the limitations that you have. I like that they are doing that with a lot of these cases, putting them in a different format, but for a lot of them, I feel like it doesn't fully do the stories justice, because there is a lack of detail or a lack of atmosphere due to the format that the case takes. And I think this is one of those where I feel like I would have liked this better if it hadn't been in the format that it is in. And I also have this the strongest with the voyeur episode. I think the voyeur episode could have been better if it had actually taken the time to detail the things that were happening instead of taking away from it. And I'm not the type of person to be super overly negative about things. And I'll mention the cases that I do really like. Anyway, when Inksol tells me to dig, I dig. Episode 17, Celia wakes up next to a train track. Oh god. Oh golly. Oh boy. So she kind of lies about having been in Oxford as like a lie to Sam on why she wasn't at the date. And I feel like she was actually in Oxford, because that could maybe imply something, because Hilltop was like at Oxford, which then means that maybe she is sleepwalking or teleporting closer to Hilltop Road, because that's where the whole reality is, and she shouldn't be in this reality. That'd be like a really interesting thought, is that she might, like, the universe is trying to get her back to where she belongs. So, I said I was gonna mention when I do like the cases. I fucking love this case. This case is so fucking good. It's amazing. It's about a guy who hops dimensions and then basically kills his other version. Really good. Especially with, like, the whole anger thing of getting to see the version of yourself, like, the person you really didn't want to be. Like, seeing the actual manifestation of what would happen if you let that take over. And Celia responds to this case with,
Not exactly the same, though, is it?
well, it's not quite the same. Which implies some things, especially with the whole double universe hopping stuff. Did Celia kill her double? I don't think so, because she said it's not quite the same. So what I think happened is Celia saw her other self die and then took her place, and her other version actually had Jack as a baby. So now she's taking care of Jack, and that's why she doesn't know where Jack comes from, because she basically took the place of her double. And everyone and their mom has pointed out how there is, like, somewhere in the statement, the guy just takes a really long time to describe these two guys in the therapy office.
Anyway, there was a new receptionist behind the old front desk. Some big, soft-looking guy who stumbled over every word. A year ago, it would probably have wound me right up, but what can I say? Therapy works. There was another patient too, some bookish-looking guy with serious city miles. I used to play the game, What Are You In For?, where I would pass the time guessing, well, you know. In my head, he was definitely some kind of weird pervert, really into stroking orchids or something. Thinking back, I almost wonder if the same thing happened to them.
And they match up with John and Martin's descriptions. But it's an alternate universe, so it doesn't really mean anything. I think it's just a cute little reference. They were like, oh, look, they're alive in this alternate universe. And there's also some implications about the idea of this guy just being able to hop dimensions this easily. Because before this, you had to be at Hilltop Road, right? You had to fall through that hole to hop dimensions. If this guy could just basically meditate so hard he hopped dimensions, that means that the line between dimensions has just been broken, basically. I love how John is always described as, like, this scrawny, disheveled, homeless, sickly-looking man. So deranged he has a fucking flower fetish, creepy ass little freakazoid. It's like Martin, oh yeah, he's a bigger, roomy guy. It's the contrast is really funny. Episode 18. Alice comes across Teddy, who is kind of lurking around the OAR. He says he's for a job application there because obviously there's other... Just because he's around the place doesn't technically mean he is there for the OAR. But, like, I feel like story-wise, he has something to do with the OAR, right? He is sneaking around for some reason. And I don't know what. I don't know what the reason is. But maybe he knows something? This is the first time the series canonically mentions that the OAR is located at the Royal Mint Court. This was confirmed already in the ARG. But again, this is the first time the show mentions it. And I feel like I need to add to that the Royal Mint Court was made by Robert Smirk. You know, Robert Smirk. Also, I love Lena. I love this scene with Lena. I love Lena. She has zero personality. She does not know how to hold a conversation. She is so autistic. It's insane. She called Jack an it. Lena, that's hopefully a human child. We have another case with a talking corpse. Where is Karen Stewart Carpenter when you need her? Due to the case being similar to Alice's story, Sam points this out to her, and she's like, no, I do not want anything to do with this, which actually, quite honestly, she's very valid for that. But obviously Sam's like, yeah, but like, I want to see the horrors. Everyone here has seen the horrors except me. I want to see the horrors as well. And then Gwen comes in and she starts kind of venting about her emotions. And she does it in the worst way possible, and I feel like everyone was so mad at Sam for laughing at her, but he was so valid. He was so valid. I'm sorry. I would too. I was waiting for it. The moment Gwen started that conversation, I was like, oh god, I know exactly how this is gonna go. Because she phrased that in the worst way possible. Like, if your coworker came in and went, you know Dora the Explorer? Yeah, she's a fucking assassin. You would not believe them. And it's not like Sam's not the type of person to believe a person because he's been believing Alice the entire time. It's just that, like, saying Bonzo is a hitman for the British government might be a bit tad too out there for someone to believe it. And Georgie's back. Woo! It will actually be a spin-off series for the Magnus Protocol, which I'm pretty sure follows Georgie and her kind of conspiracy theorist podcast that she has in this universe. Or at least that's my assumption about it. I'm pretty excited for that, because I love Georgie. Georgie's great. Episode 19. Celia is now just straight up doing research into alchemy. Up until this point, I've not really pointed towards the board, like, at all. Not a lot. I feel like I'm missing maybe some stuff, but, like, a lot of things have been introduced already. But we finally got some mentions of alchemy again, because we've not really had much about alchemy. But this episode will for sure talk a lot about alchemy. Sam basically awakens like a sleeper agent and like spews out all the alchemy info he knows. I thought he didn't remember anything about the Magnus Institute, but I guess now he does. Which also confirms the kind of connection between alchemy and the Magnus Institute. And also whatever Celia is doing. Sam also suspects that the computers might be listening to them, because the case is about alchemy. Which I think I actually really like this aspect of the horror of this show. It's something I had to really get used to, because the vibes of the Magnus Archives are so immaculate and great that it's not something they could ever match. The isolation of the season 1 of the Magnus Archives and that kind of unknowing feeling, how empty everything feels, how it just feels dark in a sort of way, is not something you can replicate in a newer series, just because it's the novelty of watching those first few episodes that just, you can't do that. But I really like the approach they've done with this one. The characters aren't aware that they are being listened to, unlike most stereotypical podcasts where they are actively talking towards the audience. We seem to know more than them. We are these forces that are looking into their lives. And the fact that we are in basically all technology is pretty obviously about how technology is literally always watching and listening to us. And I like that as like an extension of the Magnus Archives themes about the eye and stuff. Like, that is such an eye thing. The surveillance of social media, of technology. And this is such a great fucking example of that. Because very subtly, every time a character mentions a thing, the computer will spew back something that is related. In the same way that if I were to mention, I don't know, cookies, then suddenly I'll get cookie advertisements. Because our computers are always watching and listening, and it's one of those things that, like, we're all aware of it, but at the same time we don't fully grasp how fucking scary that can be. That, like, this device is capable of constantly picking up on things, and without any of our input, basically telling us, hey, you wanted this, right? And I like that Freddy does that as well. So anyway, about the actual case, Johnny and Alex are writing RPF again. Woo! This time it's Isaac Newton creating the Fruit of Knowledge. Yeah. So basically it's an old-timey statement. It's a letter, because of course it is. And basically Isaac Newton created the Fruit of Knowledge, and he gave it to a dog, and the dog turned into a fucking tree. Is that a Silt Versus reference? This is also where we're getting into the protocol. The protocol is pretty much probably related to Starkwall. Starkwall is also mentioned in this episode by Gwen and Lena as a security company. That one episode at the Hilltop charity center when all the army men came in with the guns. That's, to me, Stark Wall. And the protocol is basically this procedure that they do to hold back either something that is going wrong with alchemy or the entities. This very drastic measure to contain it or destroy it. And has existed for a very long time. Also, important information, Colin owns pet fish. Colin's husband is nowhere to be found, because I still, to this day, believe that Colin has a really sweet, nice husband at home. You cannot tell me he doesn't. But he also mentions Mommy and Daddy Stasi. Woo! ARG reference! Having gone to Berlin wasn't a mistake. Episode 20. So again, Sam has kind of figured out that the computers are listening. He forgot about the cameras though. We got some concrete answers again about Stark Wall, because Sam theorizes that Stark Wall are the people that burned down the Magnus Institute. What? So the implication here is that something really bad happened with the Magnus Institute. They were trying to do something really bad. Some, maybe, apocalypse-related bad things. I love that Celia just went, yeah, I know 40 people died. But, like, maybe it was a good thing. Anyway, meanwhile, Gwen is going to Inksol, and we get the confirmation that Inksol's real name is Grace, which I already had on my board, because I'm cool. And we basically get Gwen taking a statement from Inksol, so there is some, implications there. This also confirms that Inksol doesn't know what an avatar is, and that they are an avatar. Maybe nobody knows, or Gwen's just very non-knowledgeable, because obviously she refers to it as an external, which, no, Inksol's not an external yet. They need to take the job first. Yeah, Inksol's stealing tattoos and stuff, which, yeah. Up until this point, Gwen has basically met up with a external every 10 episodes. So I'm going to assume episode 30 will also have Gwen meeting an external, but also episode 30 will be the actual finale of the season. So I don't know, maybe it's something bigger. I have no idea where we're going with things. I think the biggest mystery right now is Error, and like the talking corpses, and how they might be related to maybe the Magnus Institute, maybe they're from the Magnus Archives universe, something like that. I don't know. Something's going on. I just feel like the statements they are giving feel like season 5 statements. Please do subscribe if you want to see more from me. Woo! And I'll see you guys later.